You are listening to the IFH Podcast Network. For more amazing filmmaking and screenwriting podcasts, just go to ifhpodcastnetwork.com.
Hello and welcome to episode 361 of the show. This week we have Calvin Zimmerman, who talks about his feature film Wildlife, which he wrote, directed, edited, and produced. He talks about the importance of being passionate about your subject, screenwriting structure tips, and much more. Hope you enjoyed the interview, and I'll see you in the intermission. All right, Calvin, thanks for coming on the show. Appreciate you being here today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So it's a brand new year, and since it's January, I feel like I'm legally obligated to ask what your New Year's resolutions, maybe your filmmaker resolutions for the year are. Do you have any in mind, or is this just like one of those years that we just kind of take it and see how it goes, considering the last couple of years have been?
Well, actually, what's really interesting is I don't have any New Year's resolutions. I don't have any New Year's plans. And the past 2 years, I have had enormous plans and resolutions that I followed through with, and we'll get into that. But we just wrapped up my feature. Like, we finished post-production, like, right around Christmas, and had our first cast and crew showing on January 1st. So that is done. And now I'm kind of living in the aftermath of that, you know? I'm kind of seeing what happens next. So I don't have any big plans. I don't have any big resolutions, which is kind of unusual for me.
Is it kind of nice after, because I mean, making a feature is such a big endeavor, a huge chunk of your life. Is it nice to just be like, well, I'm just kind of feel things out for a minute?
Yeah, it's really nice. I haven't watched television without guilt for 2 years. Every time I had a bit of free time, I was like, I should have been working on the movie. But for 2 calendar years from January of 2020 until now, that was my goal and my plan and what I was working towards. So it is definitely nice to just take a breather and think about other projects, and also just, I don't know, focus on myself a little bit. It's been a while.
That's nice. Yeah, that's nice. I'm assuming the cast and crew screening went well, and that's a great way to start the year off. You have it on January 1st. Like, here's everything we did. Here's the new year. Boom. Here we go. That seems very nice.
It was very nice. It went very, very well. Couldn't have gone better. Everybody had a fantastic time. The movie it was insane watching it up there. I don't remember anything that happened that day, but I remember it was a good day, a good feeling. And yeah, what a way to kick off the new year. I was like, this film hopefully will bring something to us, right? And at the very least, it brought everybody together. And, I've got a team that I want to continue to work with, and we're going into this next year together. That was kind of part of the reason I wanted to do it on New Year's Day. It's a fresh start, and we're taking this new kind of found family, as cheesy as it sounds, into this new year, and hopefully it'll bring us something good.
Nice. Well, before we get into the actual film, you were recommended to me through people who regularly participate with screenwriting Twitter, which is apparently just its own. I'm a screenwriter, but I don't actively participate in screenwriting Twitter. I see a bunch of people that I follow talking about it, and there's all this drama and stuff, and I'm like, what? what is happening? It seems like its own little world. It's kind of nuts.
So screenwriting Twitter is I don't want to attribute all of its existence to Script Pipeline, but they had a huge hand in it early on in the pandemic. Literally March of 2020, April of 2020, they're like, hey, we're going to do a weekly little writer mixer right here on Twitter, because nobody could leave their houses. And they just had the hashtag Pipeline Writers every Friday night, and everybody would just hop in there, and people would ask fun questions about your work in progress, what's your main character's favorite color or something silly like that, or people would ask for feedback or whatever. And I think this kind of big community kind of grew that I don't think really existed before, of all of these people, young and old, new and experienced, to kind of come together and just work on stuff together. And it's been a really great community for honestly the most part. I know you hear about drama, and there is here and there, but with any large group of people, there's going to be a couple people who, basically they just say some mean things, or they, publicly shame somebody else for giving them a bad note or something silly like that. I know it's a little goofy, but with all you might hear about drama, it is still a really great place. And I made a lot of great friends there that I probably wouldn't have met otherwise. And those people were the ones who helped me workshop Wildlife, my feature, from baby script to what it is now. I was not an experienced screenwriter. I had never really done it before at all when I started writing this script. I'm only 24. I was like 22 when I started writing it. And there were people who helped me. They helped me find my story and help me polish it and make it into what I think is a really good script. And at the beginning it wasn't, so it is a really wonderful community. Like, there are some bad eggs, but like, you can say that about literally any community that you find. Like, but they're really wonderful people. I promise.
That's good. That's good. But I mean, yeah, it is important to find those people that you can trust to help you out and be able to send a script to and get feedback, and then feel like you don't have to drag them afterwards.
Yeah, exactly. Again, there's some bad eggs, but people. I've gotten a lot of really tough to receive feedback before, especially like on Wildlife, and it was so important to me that it was always hard to hear that this isn't working or that needs to be fixed. But I never felt like I was being attacked. I never got like a bad note. People always had something to kind of go off of. Yeah, they were like, oh, this just doesn't work. I don't understand what this means. Take a look at this. People really tried to, I think, guide each other and help each other over there. I like it. But I spent a lot of time on Twitter, so maybe I'm biased.
Yeah, I mean, it is social media, so there's still that aspect of like, well, this is still an experiment ongoing. if humans can actually use this or not long term. Well, that's really cool though. So yeah, is Wildlife your first like anything?
Wildlife
feature
kind
short?
of is my first anything.
Wow.
So
okay.
I've been like a filmmaker, at heart since I was a kid, and I made like little shorts in high school and stuff. But once I was out of high school, right, I went to college for a semester. I went to film school for a semester, and then I dropped out.
Okay.
But and anybody who tries to do anything independently knows that it is very difficult to get people to help you with stuff, right? Yeah. And I was like, I don't come from money. I don't come from like an industry background. I live in San Diego now, but I'm originally from Wisconsin. I was like, it is not easy to get people to be involved in your projects and stuff. And I was like, I can't make 5 or 6 short films and then try to tackle a feature. I was like, it'll take forever, and for the people who do that, like, more power to you. Because I gotta tell you, I can't imagine the amount of work that would go into making like several shorts and then trying to do a feature. Oh God, no. But I was like, I don't think that's going to happen. So I was like, I'm going to make a feature. I'm going to jump into it. I haven't made anything since high school, but like, what could possibly go wrong? And I got very fortunate that very few things did go wrong. But that's part of the reason I spent 2 years like workshopping the script. I was like, if this is going to work, if I'm going to be able to jump right into a feature and have it not tank, I've got to make sure that my script is strong and that I do as much research about just indie filmmaking in general and filmmaking in general as I possibly can. I watched a lot of like retrospectives that people had made. Like, people make like little YouTube videos documenting the making of their features, kind of learned from other people's mistakes. I read books. I read like Rebel Without a Crew, all that good stuff to try to not only, again, have that really strong script, but go into it with as much knowledge as I possibly could. And like, again, learning from other people's mistakes. And this was my first real anything that wasn't for a high school film class. And I think it turned out pretty good, which I'm still shocked about. So
This episode is brought to you by Sapelo Insurance. Sapelo is Georgia's premier film insurance agency. With over 10 years of experience in commercial lines, And with film industry professionals on staff, Sapelo offers you the insurance you need for your next project, including equipment, general liability, auto liability, workers' comp, guild travel, and more. Contact Sapelo when you are starting your next production. For more information, check out their website at sapeloins.com.
Well, tell us the story of Wildlife. What's it all about?
Oh, geez. This is usually where I lose people.
Okay.
So Wildlife, and again, as I'm telling you this, imagine me having to pitch this to actors and people who had locations I wanted, and basically everybody for the last 2 years, because I get, again, typically where I lose people. So
Okay.
Wildlife.
On that note,
Wildlife tells a story that is very, very important to me. It tackles a subject matter that I have been passionate about since I was in high school, right? And that is the issue of gun violence. Wildlife tells the story of a small town in the Midwest that kind of collapses in on itself after the local high school falls victim to a mass shooting that takes the lives of 14 people, students and faculty. It follows folks who were both directly and indirectly impacted by the shooting, people who were there, people who were not, people who were victims, people who lost loved ones, and what happens to them after. A little more specifically, it follows a group of kids, they're like freshman age, who are dealing with the aftermath of the shooting after one of their own passes away. One of the kids in this group of friends dies. The situation kind of spirals further out of control when it is revealed that the shooter is the older brother of our protagonist, Rudolph, and that their parents are doing whatever they can to try to keep him out of prison.
Okay.
And from there, you follow all of these people. You follow parents of dead kids. You follow, kids with survivor's guilt. You follow this protagonist who is fighting this, internal battle of whether he's going to bend to his family's will like he always has, or if he's going to finally stand up to them and stand by the community that his brother destroyed. At its heart, it's about, doing the right thing over doing the easy thing. And also, of course, what, a mass shooting like this, how it affects a community. And just gun violence in general, how it affects a community. Because usually that is kind of lost in the aftermath. We don't usually stick around, news cameras and whatnot tend to leave about a week or two after, any major shooting. And we don't see what happens to those people. But, years later, they're still there and still dealing with the damage. And that's what it's about. It's about trying to tell a story that, in my opinion, has not been told. And when it has, been attempted to been told, has not been done justice at all. So that's kind of, it's a lot. It's a drama, obviously.
Yeah. It would have been interesting if you'd said, obviously, it's a romantic comedy. So
obviously, yeah.
But you did say something in the beginning where you said how you emphasized how important it was to you, the story and everything. And I'm sure that came across to pitching it to, like you said, to actors and
yes.
everybody else in crew and maybe investors or whoever locations. Say, like, this isn't just some movie I'm making. Like this is something deep and personal,
exactly,
and that can really help sell a project to people that you again are going to be around for probably a long time and working with for a long time. When was the idea? I was like to ask, like, what was the spark? But that's kind of obvious, I guess, at this point. But at what point did you realize that you wanted to make this, especially as your first feature? Like, when did it go from this would be a good idea to I have to make this? You know what I mean?
Yeah. So, I mean, I'll try to give you the abridged version because it is the whole story of Wildlife it's one of those things where it's been a long time coming. I mentioned that this has been important to me since I was in high school. I'm very fortunate that I have never personally been like a victim of gun violence. Nobody I'm very close to has. I wasn't like present for any of these high profile shootings, and I understand that sometimes when I say that this is a very important subject matter to me, it may come across that way, and I want to make sure that I'm not leading people on in that way. But when I was in high school, just randomly one day, I was a senior, I was assigned a debate topic, and I had to debate whether or not teachers should be armed. And this was 2014. So this was like before Parkland. This was before the whole March for Our Lives movement. And like gun violence, especially in schools, was still not something we were really talking about, even though this was not too long after Sandy Hook. It just wasn't talked about. It still kind of isn't, but the situation's a little better, but I digress. So I was assigned this debate topic, and when I was told, whether or not teachers should be armed, it didn't even occur to me why they would be, right? So I go to the library and I Google it, and what Google pulls up for me is all these articles about Sandy Hook, Virginia Tech, and Columbine. And I had heard these names before, and I knew that these were mass shootings, but I didn't really know any of the details. And when I started looking into it, I realized that, first of all, the severity of these incidents and just how horrible they were. I mean, it's a school shooting. It can't exactly be not horrible, but
right.
it was shocking. And what was even more shocking was in the wake of all of these shootings from Columbine to Sandy Hook, nothing had changed. Nothing. And there was like no attempts either. And I was like, I felt let down by my government, and I still do. And obviously it's a complicated issue. There's a lot that goes into it. I'm not saying we should take all of our guns or anything, but nothing really seemed to be, there were no gears turning. You know what I mean? It just kind of was left alone. And that really bothered me. So I gave my debate, and it's fine. And I went on to continue to discuss that subject matter in other classes. I wrote papers on it when I could. I gave presentations. And then towards the end of my senior year, it was March of 2015. I was in a film class at the time at my high school. And my film teacher came in one day, and he's like, "Hey guys, we have this opportunity for you." And it is, I was living in Wisconsin at the time, right? That's where my hometown is. And this film school in Chicago, the Tribeca Flashpoint, was holding a film festival for high school students, right? And they had a theme every year. And the theme that year was the best or worst day of high school. And I was like, all right. I was like, I got this. And in retrospect, because I'm sure you have an idea of what I'm going to say next. In retrospect, probably should have not done what I went on to do. But I decided I was going to make a short film, and I was going to portray a fictitious school shooting within the walls of my high school in the most respectful way possible, right? No guns, no blood, no shooter. But it was a lot of just shots of scared kids hiding under desks and, that kind of, I could see it so clearly in my head, right? And anybody who watched the film knew exactly what was going on just from seeing, again, there was no weaponry on screen, no fake blood, no screaming kids, but everybody knew exactly what was going on immediately. So I made this film, and about like a week into our 9 days of production or whatever, it wasn't a big thing. I got called down to principal's office because word had gotten out about what I was doing, and my film teacher was in super hot water because I was using his equipment. And I got pulled into the principal's office for the very first time. And he sat me down, and he asked me what I thought I was doing. And I kind of told him everything I told you here. I gave him maybe more of an expanded version and everything. But I said, this is something that is important to me. And I've always been a filmmaker. And art is kind of how I tell my story. It's how I made my voice heard. And I was like, this isn't supposed to be a joke. It's not supposed to be funny. It's not for shock value. But I was like, this is very important to me. And then he told me an interesting story. And I'll give you the abridged version here again. I try my best. I like to talk. But he said that he had not lived in our small Wisconsin hometown, right, his entire life, but that he was actually from Colorado, Littleton, Colorado.
Oh, okay.
And he told me that on April 20th, 1999, he was working as an administrator at, I believe, Heritage High School was the name. I think that's the name off the top of my head, but it was the, for lack of a better term, kind of rival high school for Columbine. It was one of the two others that were in that school district. It's the other high school. You know, we all went to public school or something. You know what? The other high school. And 2 weeks after the shooting, all of the surviving Columbine students went back to school at Heritage High School, I believe. Again, that's the name. Went back to school at Heritage High School, and he detailed to me what it was like watching these like stone-faced Columbine students walking through his halls 2 weeks after seeing hell, basically. And he was like, that, as an administrator, as a teacher, as a principal, that is my worst fear. And he gave me permission to finish my film.
Wow. Okay.
And, you know, I went on to, I entered in the festival and we got in. I did not win, and I'm mad about it to this day. But so that was a big thing. So this has been hugely important to me for a very long time. I don't know why. There's not a personal connection, but it's always stuck with me. And I think a lot of people have a social issue like that. It's just the one that really kind of sticks in your head. And then January of 2020, I was kind of lost. You know, I was living in San Diego, but I wanted to move up to LA and get involved in the film industry, but I was just kind of fucking around. And I didn't know what to do next. And I was like, I'm going to finish Wildlife, because I had started a feature script based on kind of the original short film. Just conceptually, it was, now they're so different, it's unreal, but same concept. And I was like, I'm gonna work on that. And about a month into working on it, even though the script was a mess, I was like, based on what I have here and what I'm sure the script's gonna turn out to be, I could make this. I had never really made anything, but I was like, how hard could it be? You know, it's just a bunch of people standing around. They're in their houses. They're in a school, a church. How hard could it be to get those locations? Very hard. Very hard. But I didn't know that at the time. I was young and spry and full of life. So I was like, I'm going to make this. And it's exactly what I did. And, you know, there was no like 1 minute kind of spark that made it happen for me, but it's been a long time coming. And, you know, one of my favorite quotes is by one of my personal heroes, Tom Mauser, who lost his 15-year-old son, Daniel, at Columbine. I read his memoir, and there's a quote in there that I believe I remembered verbatim, but it was essentially, society so often looked to those who had suffered a great loss to step in and rally others. But why look to them to point out the obvious need for change? And that has always stuck with me. And that is a huge part of the reason that I did this and that I made it as far as I did with Wildlife, because it was not easy. Not at all.
Yeah. Welcome to the Intermission. This is Chuck just breaking in with some quick announcements. This Saturday, Atlanta Film Society and Kodak Film Lab are hosting an introductory course to shooting on 16mm film. If you've ever wanted to shoot on actual film before, this is a great way to learn all about it, get a demonstration, see the differences between maybe lighting, film, and digital, that kind of stuff. And also this Saturday, Atlanta Film Society is hosting Back to One Filmmaking Basics with Linda Burns. Technically 3 different classes. There's Film Business 101, just the real basic stuff about working on set and terminology and all that kind of stuff. There's one called Getting Started in the Industry, which is pretty, I feel like, self-explanatory. And also Crafting a Proper Film Crew Resume, which is something that seems very simple, creating a resume, but it is not. Again, all that is on this Saturday, and you can check out the Atlanta Film Society Facebook page for more info. Also, Film Impact Georgia has announced their Spring 2022 Filmmaker Grant. If you want $5,000 to make a short film, and you are a filmmaker in Georgia, and you have plans to make this film in Georgia within the next year, might as well submit. The deadline is March 4th, so you have plenty of time to get your stuff together, get a nice pitch deck together. Maybe you don't even have a film yet. You think, man, I just really want that $5,000. Well, you have time to write it and make a good document and send it over and wow everybody over at Film Impact Georgia. And you can find more information about that at filmimpactgeorgia.org. Make sure to head over to patreon.com/AFCIndieFilm, where you can find Calvin's exclusive Patreon content. Talks about putting a team together and pitching yourself to those people. You can get early access to that for as low as $1 a month. There's other options, including a shout out on the show, which Ken Merritt has gotten. Thank you for that. but you're not over there at patreon.com/AFC Indie Film, you're missing literally hours of content from guests. Most of that stuff is unlocked now, so you can just go watch it and enjoy. So don't miss out. Lastly, I just need to tell you about our sponsors, Element Certified Public Accountants and Consultants. Element is a film, television, and entertainment-focused accounting firm, and they provide tax credit audits, individual and corporate tax return preparation, loan-out company creation, and production accounting. Now, you may be wondering, you're listening to this, and you just started working in the industry, and you're thinking, I don't need production accounting. I don't need any of that stuff. I just work on set. Maybe I'll own a production company in the future, but that's not a problem for present me. That's a problem for future me. No, that is a problem for present you, because it is never too early to think about this stuff. You can always go talk to the fine folks over at Element about your plans for the future. That production company might be a few years in the future for you, but there's no reason to not start planning for it now. And just learn all the rules, regulations, and money issues that are going to pop up with running a production company, including taxes, which it's now tax season again somehow. So if you work on set, you own a production company, maybe a little bit of both, you have taxes due, and they're complicated because it's film industry and nothing can be simple. So you need someone like the fine people over at Element to help you out. So save the drama for the set and let Element take the burden of tax and accounting off your back. Hit them up at elementcpas.com. That is elementcpas.com. Element, fluent in your language. It was fun talking to Calvin. It's a little bananas that he thought, well, I don't want to just make a short. That seems like a lot of work for not much reward. I'm just going to make a feature. But I like the thinking behind that. And just like, well, if I'm going to do all this work and go through all this heartache and process and whatever, might as well make a feature. And well, it worked. So I thought it was a cool story. So I'm going to get you back to it. You might notice maybe my voice is a little off, a little nasally. Just got off a bout with COVID. Yes, I've got all 3 shots. Still got it. Still kind of knocked me out for a minute. Nothing too crazy, nothing too bad, luckily. And I'm on the mend, but yeah, if you haven't gotten your shots, go get it, because who knows how bad it would have been without them. This is number 2. First time I had no symptoms. This time I did definitely have symptoms. So watch out, wear those masks, boost up, get the first shot if you haven't even gotten the first shot. Even just one helps. And make sure you're still working on your stuff. Calvin saw an opportunity with COVID and everything. Let's get out there and really focus and make a movie, and it happened. So that's what I'm talking about. Get out there and get it done. Little bit by little bit still is progress. And eventually you'll have a thing, and you can show to people, maybe find some people to work with, et cetera, et cetera. That's how it works. All right, I'm going to get you back to the show. See you next week. I mean, that's super cool that your principal was able to recognize that what you were doing was important to you, and it easily could have gone another way, I'm sure.
Exactly. He didn't know me very well at all. I had never been sent to the principal's office. It's my biggest flex. I'd been there for like 4 years. I'd only talked to him like once. Yeah. I don't think he knew who I was, but I guess I managed to kind of sell it to him. And everything I said was the truth. I was like, this is just important. I'm trying to do the right thing here, Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, we'll talk a little bit about development of the script, especially since you got to hop on screenwriting Twitter and get some help. Talk about maybe some of the challenges you had if this is one of your first big, huge projects, which is a feature, which is a big deal. I mean, a lot of people probably know this that are listening to this, but to not go from like a little short or whatever, just to make a whole feature is a big endeavor. So talk about development of the story and everything, and how that went, and anything you really had to, maybe one big thing you really had to overcome and figure out for the first time.
Yeah. I think the big thing was, with only having done, like, I wouldn't even call them shorts, back when I was in high school, and never written like a full story like this, is finding like a story. I've read a lot of scripts and seen a lot of films that they don't have a story. They have kind of a premise. Mm-hmm. And when I started out, that's exactly what I had. I had a premise, right? And the first couple drafts of the script, I couldn't quite figure out what was going wrong, but it was a lot of like vignettes of like little things, and they were very interesting. And, there was a lot about character, but there was no story. There was nothing that really was keeping you wanting to know what was going to happen next. Yeah. I read Save the Cat, which has a lot of mixed reviews these days. But I think there are points to it, that it makes, that essentially there has to be a conflict, right? There has to be a hero. He's got to have a conflict, something he wants, and there's a reason he can't have it. And the conflict in our film is not the shooting. It's not. That happens in the first 5 minutes. But the conflict is rather that this character, Rudolph, he wants to prevent his parents from fighting the charges, right, pressed against his brother, because he knows that if he doesn't, it is going to further hurt the community that he lives in and his friends and his family and whatnot, and that it is going to further ostracize his family from that community, right? Mm-hmm. That's the conflict is not the shooting. And when people stick around, they want to stick around because they want to see how that conflict is resolved. He tries a bunch of different things and, none of them work. And, the basic story arc or whatever. But people want to stick around to see how it's resolved. And because they do stick around, then they get to see all of these other things. These vignettes or these little, we get to peek into these other characters' lives and see how they're dealing with this aftermath. But before I had that story, which I don't even remember how I came up with that. It just dropped in my lap one day, I guess. But everybody who read the script was like, this is very interesting, but you lose me at about page 25 because there's nothing happening. Nothing is keeping me wanting to know what's going to happen next. That was my biggest thing. And I was like, a lot of people, they do like movies that just kind of meander along and they're total slice of life. And I like those every once in a while too. Some people, that's their favorite shit, and more power to you. But I was like, but a lot of people don't like that. And I think everybody likes a story that keeps you on the edge of your seat, where you want to know what happens next. And I was like, I'm trying to make sure that I don't lose viewers, if that makes sense. I was like, I can't afford to, if I'm going to really do this and really make this film, I have to make sure that people want to see the story to the end. And that was my big thing, was finding that, what's going to happen next kind of thing.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I used to screen for the film festival here at Atlanta Film Festival for years. And I saw so many films that you could tell that, like yourself, the filmmaker was just, they had this really important thing they wanted to tell the world. Like, this means a lot to me. I need to get this message out, and they made a film. The difference, the difference between those films and what sounds like you've done is that they took a second to think, what's a good story? It's one thing to pick up a camera and make a documentary or a short film or whatever it is and say, look, this is important, but there's no film there. There's no story there. And there were so many that were just like that, that you could tell it was just such a passion thing for them, but they didn't stop to think just for a second, would anybody else care about this if maybe I gave the main character a reason to live, and I'm serious. Oh, God, there's so many bad movies out there.
And I think it works a little bit better as kind of a short form thing, like a short film, because then you can't cram a 90-minute character arc into a short film, and I would fault them if they tried to do that. Because I've seen a lot of short films specifically that are about social issues or whatever, and they're these quick they're like little vignettes, and you get to see. It's like a little thing we get to see the aftermath of, I don't know, someone who's into hard drugs or something like that. And it makes you think, and that's nice. But I'm like, you can't do that for 90 minutes. And I was like, I can't do that for. And also, I was like, if I don't give them something to pay attention to and a story to follow and a kind of a little mystery to unsolve, not like a mystery, but what's he gonna do now? Now what? His situation just got worse. Are people really going to want to sit there and watch children cry for 90 minutes? Because it gets depressing really fast.
I don't know. I might be into a 90-minute film of just children crying. I think about it. No. But I mean, some people can't even pull that off for 5 minutes, let alone 90.
Film Impact Georgia is a nonprofit organization dedicated to providing a voice to independent film production in the Peach State. Their focus includes short film grants, development labs, community boosting events, and support services from vendors and mentors. Georgia has diverse and engaging storytellers, and FIG is determined to help break down the barriers to creation in our state. Find more information about the organization and how to get involved at filmimpactgeorgia.org.
And the whole Save the Cat thing's interesting too, because I mean I'm not a huge fan of that book either, but I also understand why it exists. Just yeah, I mean, learning the format of the script and learning the nature of it and where beats go and stuff is important. But I feel like most people who read Save the Cat want to immediately start breaking out of it.
Yeah.
Because it is it's extremely rigid. It's more rigid than pretty much any other formatting
I know, they're
book.
like, page 12, you need to do this. And I was like, all right, listen. I was like, my character's got long names. Okay, it's going to be page 13, and it's not going to be...
No,
definitely. Yeah. I think a problem is that, like, some people who read it, I don't know why, but I feel like it's specifically a problem with that book. Some people who read it are like, all right, this is law. This is how you have to do it. And they're going to, like, give people notes and be like, your break into 2 happened on page 26 instead of page 25 or God, whatever it is. I haven't read that book in 2 years.
Yeah.
And then other people are like, well, you can't take it, as 100%. And they're like sitting on two opposite sides of the spectrum. And I'm like, I think like with any advice from anybody and any, amateurs or professionals, you have to take it all with a grain of salt and like kind of take what applies. You got to apply some critical thinking skills here. And like, I use it as a very rough, just kind of outline basically. And I was like, oh, you know what? I don't have a moment where things kind of go wrong again. And I was like, well, I think about all these movies I've seen and like that. Yeah, that makes sense. And like, that seems to fit there, and it helped me break down movies that I'd seen before that really worked for me, that I liked, and realize why they did the things that they did and why it worked and how that could probably fit into my story. I think it improved my story, but I got to tell you, like, I wasn't breaking into 2 on page 25. Okay. I was like page 28 and I was like, I hope nobody's looking over my shoulder right now. But I think you just got to take it with a grain of salt a little bit, like anything.
Oh yeah, my I've recently gone back to get my master's in not just screenwriting but writing. But I took a screenwriting course, and
sorry.
I've been no, it was interesting because I've been writing scripts for 15 years now. Mm-hmm. So going back to a 101 class was interesting, but I got a lot out of talking with other people and giving notes because we had table reads and stuff. And one of his important lessons about the structure stuff is like people when they're watching a movie, they can feel when something's going on too long, and if you're not paying attention to these breaks, it doesn't have to be page 20, exact page, but just people will naturally feel these things as they're watching a movie, and that's when they go, oh, this is feeling a little long and I'm not entertained. And that's why it's important to understand where these breaks are generally supposed to happen, because you can lose people if you're not paying attention and you don't have something interesting happening, especially now because people's attention spans are so short. I feel like they're gonna, if page 30 happens and they're like, oh, so nothing's happened, they're gonna click away and go to Netflix or something else and look for something else. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Yeah. So, well, then talk about production. Then, if this your first. Yeah, I'm sorry. You directed this too, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So big directorial debut.
Yes.
Talk about that experience.
You
had to pitch this thing to actors, and then you had to keep them engaged throughout the whole production. Mm-hmm. So I'm curious how that went.
Production was insane and the best experience of my entire life. Like, I'm still emotional about it to this day.
Nice. Okay.
So I wrote the film, I directed it, I self-financed it, and I edited it.
Oof,
right.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I had my budget was $5,500, not including the $2,500 I spent because I had to get a new laptop and and hard drives, because I was operating on like a 2012 MacBook Pro. I'm like, it's time to upgrade. I needed that anyway. So I was like, I don't really count it as part of the budget, but I also had to pay for it. So about $8,000.
Mm-hmm.
I saved that money. I didn't. I saved it at my crappy little job. You know, I had a good job, and I was very fortunate that I was able to save so much, and I was a full-time job, good pay. But that was my money. Wasn't given to me by a parent. Wasn't crowdfunded. That was all mine.
Nice.
And the only person I paid, I should say, is my director of photography. His name is Elijah Dirks. He is perfect, and I love him. I paid him because he came with his own equipment. He also did our audio, and that was his job, straight up. And I was like, if I didn't pay him, I would be buying the stuff myself because I ain't got any of this equipment, and then I'd be doing it myself. And I am so glad I didn't, because I was already there was so much happening. But everything that wasn't like the cinematography, and he was our only camera, by the way. So he one camera and like 1.5 microphones. Everything that wasn't the audio visual, like physically happening on the set, I did it. So I cast the film. I did all the script breakdown stuff. I storyboarded it. I got all of our locations. Everything was me.
Nice.
I finished the script in January of 2021. From January of 2020, I worked on it for like a calendar year. And then January of last year, I was like, I have to be done with this because I have about 6 months to like make a movie happen. And then I did pre-production. Pre-production was emails. I do live in San Diego. I filmed the film in my hometown in southeastern Wisconsin. Small town. And I guess I could say the name. It's on our website. My hometown is Oconomowoc, Wisconsin, and that's where I am now. I was here for the holidays, and like, you know, I just all that good stuff. I'm a little scared of COVID, so I haven't gotten back home yet. But I live in San Diego, and I was like, I'm going to film in Oconomowoc. But obviously, when I was doing all my pre-production stuff, I was still at home in California, so it was all emails, and I had absolutely zero luck. It was terrible. I messaged. Oh my god! I was like, school's gonna be the easiest thing to get, because I was like, I'll just message my old high school and be like, hey, remember me? Yeah, that did not go very far. They wanted nothing to do with it. I did everything I could to like schmooze them. I was like, you know, anything, there's nothing graphic in the film. There's no fake blood. There's none of that. There is like a fake gun, but I was like, I can not bring that into your school building. Like, I'm okay with that. I was like, anything related to the shooting, we can not film here. But I was like, I got to get some B-roll for there's like opening credits, and like you see the kids in the school, and then they're talking, and like all the stuff that happens before. There's a couple flashbacks. They were not having it. Every school district within a 60-mile radius said, absolutely not. They're like, not a chance. Some of them like made up some, they were like, oh, COVID. And I was like, this was like going to be like June of like 2021. And I gotta tell you, the Midwest doesn't take COVID very seriously to begin with. So I was like, okay. And it was a flat out no. And I was like, great. Let me work on some other stuff. I needed a church. I messaged every church in the county, I swear to God. And there's a lot of them in this town. I don't know why. It's like a whole thing. Nobody would even give me the time of day. Half of them didn't even answer my email, and the other half was like, are you crazy? Because I had to film a funeral scene. And I was like, so it was terrible, but I was still determined to do this. So I flew home to Wisconsin on June 1st, right? I did all the other pre-production stuff, all my storyboards and stuff, so that was all done, but I had nothing. I didn't have a single actor. I didn't have a single prop. I didn't have a single location. I didn't have my cinematographer. I flew home on June 1st, and I was like, I'm going to be shooting on July 1st if it kills me. And close. We started shooting on July 12th. I cast my film. I used Backstage, and I used some like Facebook acting groups. Is literally like actors in southeastern Wisconsin or the Midwest players. And I just posted my shit. And I was like, I need actors. And it was a very interesting process. Most of my characters are children. They are, and I know you're not supposed to work with animals or children, but I was like, you know what? I'm going to make this even more difficult on myself than I need to. My characters are teenagers. They are all about 15 years old. And I was like, I have got to cast 15-year-olds. Because I was like, it's not going to sell if I got 25-year-olds playing these, these fucking like jacked 6'2", like 25-year-olds playing these teenagers. Like, it's not going to sell. The only person who was an adult playing a kid is our school shooter character. He's supposed to be 18. He's supposed to be a senior. Our actor was 21. He's got kind of a young face, though, so it worked. But I was like, I'm not going to have a kid in that role because I just don't want to deal with a parent. And, like... but I could not find anybody. I couldn't find... Nobody wanted to be a part of it. I couldn't even get, like, any adults. And then one day... interestingly enough, I get a message on Facebook, and it was this lady, and she's like, hey, can my kid audition for your thing? He's 14, and we live in Milwaukee, and he's interested in being it. And I was like, I would be offended if he didn't audition. So she sends me his resume.
Nice.
And I still can't get over this. At the very top, the very first thing on the resume, it says National Broadway Tour of Falsettos. And he played Jason, who's the only kid in that show. And I was like, get the fuck out of here. Because I was like, I'm not a musical theater person, but I've seen 2 professional shows in my entire life. And one of the 2 was the National Broadway Tour of Falsettos. I saw it in Los Angeles. And I was like, get the fuck out of here. I'm like, no, he didn't. Googled it. Yeah, he did. That was him. And I was like, holy shit. And I was like, the only reason I saw that show is because one of my best friends is like super into it. So I called him up and I was like, you are not going to believe who just auditioned to play my lead. And he said it on audition tape and he was fantastic. And it was right after that, after I cast him, it was the only thing I had. I had nothing going for me, but I had a Broadway kid as my lead. Everything else started to fall into place. I got audition requests for all of my other characters and everybody did a fantastic job and I cast everybody. I started calling for and like physically going into places because I was now in Wisconsin to get my locations. And I don't know how I did it, but I managed to get, I got everything. I rented the local amphitheater. It's like an outdoor amphitheater right by the beach. I rented that. I rented a pavilion at the local park. I got a church and real caskets, 2 real caskets. I didn't get a school, but we'll get to that in a second. The local police station let us film in there. They let us use their interrogation room. They even gave us real handcuffs.
Oh, nice.
Which I don't know how that happened. I don't remember asking for that, but apparently I got it. A bunch of our other locations were like just people's houses or whatever. That was fine. I got it all. And the only thing we didn't have is a school, right? And so we went through all of production. It was 4 weeks in total, right? We had 4 5-day weeks. We worked from 10 in the morning till 4 p.m. Because we had kids on set. And I was like, they're going to get rowdy after 6 hours. And also I was like... something about child labor laws, but I was like, I wasn't paying them, so like, are they really working for me? We're just hanging out. Their parents didn't care, so but we didn't have school, and I was like, oh no, I was like, what am I gonna do? And this is probably, it's not incriminating, but it's so what I did is I took my little scrappy little group of kids and I took Elijah, my cinematographer, and we went to one of the universities. I'm not going to say which one, but it's the one that I went to for a semester when I went to film school. Because I remembered that one of the buildings there, specifically it was the film building, so it could have been more perfect, looked like a high school. And I mean that. Like, it has lockers. I don't know why.
Okay.
It's very bizarre. I walk in there and I feel like I'm 15 again. And it's a university. It's open to the public. And, my cinematographer, his girlfriend's a student there anyway. So, she was there on, taking a class. So we just walked around. We got a bunch of B-roll. Kids standing at lockers. Kids having conversations. People wearing backpacks. And, got all of our B-roll that we possibly needed. And then we dipped. And... And then, we had a couple other scenes that took place in the school. We just went back to the church we filmed our funeral at, again, with permission, right? This was all with permission, except for the college, but,
Yeah.
We don't need to talk about that. But we went back to the church, the local school district lent us some cafeteria tables. We slapped that shit in their basement. I went to Dollar Tree and they got a bunch of those motivational posters, slapped them up on the walls. We had a working high school cafeteria. It was perfect. It looks great in the final cut. And, we did that scene and we called it good. So I have no idea how I got as far as I did. Well, like I said, I got cafeteria tables. I got real caskets. That's my biggest flex of all time. I got a Broadway kid. One of the other kids, he lives in San Diego. I've never met him before, but like his mom found my post on Backstage and she was like, we want to be part of this. I'm like, it's going to be in Wisconsin. I'm sorry. And she's like, oh, no, it's fine. We'll pay for it.
Okay. Wow.
Flew him out here. They stayed in a hotel for 3 weeks just so he could be in my crappy little movie. And I mean, he was fantastic. And he's been in some like big stuff. Like he's in like an off-Broadway show right now. He's been like, he's like a featured extra in a couple things that I can't talk about, but they're like big shit, like household name shit.
Yeah.
And he was also just an extra in Spider-Man. Like, his mom texted me, and was like, did you see Spider-Man? Jackson's in it. I was like, the hell do you mean Jackson's in it? I was like, he's an extra. And I don't know. I have no idea how I got this far. I mean, I lots of hard work, obviously, and I think it all comes back down to having this story that people were really excited about and really jazzed about, you know? Mm-hmm. And I got to sit down and talk with like some of these kids and parents, and like these kids grew up in this generation where school shootings happen every week. And, you know, like one of them was talking to me about how he cried after Parkland. Like he was sitting in class, just like sobbing his little eyes out. Like some 12-year-old or something at the time in Wisconsin, and just like losing his shit over it because it was so upsetting. Yeah. And, you know, they know what it's like, and they were very excited, I think, to be part of this project, you know? And people give teenagers a lot of flack, but I really enjoyed working with them. They're very smart and very astute. And they seemed very, as well as everybody else who worked on the project, you know, people, my adult actors, anybody who stepped in as an extra, anybody who just let us film in their house or their business, they seemed really excited about being part of this. And I think it's because it was a good story. And I think they could see, hopefully, the passion that I had going into it, and that's why everybody wanted to be part of it.
Well, tell everyone where to find more information about the film and websites and any release dates or anything like that you got.
Yeah, for sure. So we don't have, unfortunately, a release date yet. We like just wrapped on, you know, like post, like I said, and all that good stuff. But we do have a website. It's just literally wildlifeindie.com. You can also find me on Twitter. My @ is HapDagger. I don't know where you post this, if you put links or something, but you'll find me. It's like Happy Dagger, but without the P.
Okay.
HapDagger. That's me on Twitter and honestly any social media site. Or again, our website, wildlifeindie.com. We're trying to get look at festivals, maybe try to get like some distribution, all that stuff. So Wildlife's not out yet. Hoping for the best. And you can find our trailer on my Twitter page, and my trailer slaps. So check it out.
Okay. Well, cool. I really appreciate you coming on today.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for having
me. Congrats on finishing the film, and
thank you.
We can't wait to check it out here, and good luck with everything in the future.
Thank you so much.
The AFC Indie Filmmaking Podcast is produced by Zombie Cat Productions and Tranquil Aggression Productions. Your host is Chuck Thomas from AtlantaScreenwriter.com. Editing is by Joshua Golke. Find him at AtlantaFilmmaking.com. Music and event recording is by Michael Breezy Keys Jones. He is found at LDXSoundLabs.com. Zombie Cat Productions is owned by Molly Coffee. You can find it at ZombieCatProd.com and her at MollyCoffeeDesign.com. I am your announcer, Rob Scheimer. I can be found on SoundCloud. My profile name is ROBSHIMER. Thanks to our media partners at CinemaATLMagazine.com, and thank you for listening. Grab all our episodes at AFCIndieFilm.com.